Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. You are tuned into Salam Media with myself, Asiha David, your host for the mid morning talk. We are moving into the afternoon now, so the mid part of this talk, and we are joined with Magdalene Moonsamy. She's part of the South African Solidarity Movement for Western Sahara. Today is World Humanitarian Day, and we've been honoring humanitarians throughout the day and exploring these stories. And hopefully we can touch on that in the interview today as well, Magdalene. But specifically looking at Western Sahara for this interview, the 50-year dispute over Western Sahara has seen a significant diplomatic shift since 2020 when US President Donald Trump announced his support for Morocco's autonomy plan for the territory at the tail end of his first term. Since then, Spain, France, and the UK, including Germany, have endorsed Morocco's plan, joining over 100 other United Nations member states that have already done so. But of course, it's been pushed back, and hence the conflict that's been uprising in Western Sahara. Magdalene, if you can maybe share with the viewers and listeners back home, what's the current status of the conflict in Western Sahara, and where things stand now?
Thank you, Fasihat. Thank you to those who are listening in. The current status of the conflict is such that we have been making inroads. In terms of Spain, the UK, Germany, and France. Well, you know that France has been the occupier of Algeria, so that's a colony. Spain obviously has those relations with Morocco because Spain was the initial administrator of the Morocco and the Western Sahara situation. There is a special envoy, Stefan de Mistura, and what we know is that we are now pushing for a referendum. The referendum has been on the table for decades. The concern that Morocco has is that should there be a referendum, the referendum would find in favor for the independence of the Western Sahara. And so it exercises fear and hence continues to occupy territories. Now, one would understand if you look at, and I think that the issue needs to be escalated because it is on the continent. It's an African a colony, the last colony in Africa. And what we need to appreciate is that when we look at the situation in Palestine, where you've got occupied territories, and then where you have Israel building constant walls, we have the same situation in the Western Sahara. There is what we call the Barham. The Barham is one of the longest walls in the world, is most likely the longest built wall in the world, which separates then access from the Sahrawi people to the ocean line, or the coastline, in other words, so that Morocco can continue to extort and to export fisheries and then extract, for example, phosphates and other minerals from the Sahara, Western Sahara. Now, let's go to the European Court of Justice determination, the International Court of Justice, South African courts, and other courts, African court, the United Nations, for example. The European Court of Justice has made a clear judgment against the Western Sahara. So when you're looking at Spain, the UK, and Germany, these are just a few countries who have got their vested interest, but we'll come back to that, including that of the expression of Donald Trump, which has been now reversed in 2025. The European Court of Justice was very specific to say that Morocco has got absolutely no right in terms of extracting or removing any mineral resources from the Western Sahara due to its sovereignty. So it has reaffirmed that one cannot take from another country with by force or by assumption. because there has been sufficient petitions, there has been sufficient rulings around the issues of the Western Sahara. The conflict is uh, disseminated into various aspects. You've got political prisoners who are detained without legal representation and are tortured. And then you have those occupied territories of Morocco where there are constant bombings, constant conflict, constant human rights violations and abuses. The unoccupied territories have, to a degree, some leverage of their own determination. But these occupied territories, sorry, the unfortunate part is that it continues to the point where you have a situation where there is no access. So, for example, the United Nations has put into place what is called the Integrated Family Project, or the Integrated Project, where children haven't seen their parents in 30 or 40 years. So they have to be on a waiting list where they will be taken to the occupied territories. And when they go to visit, they're given a week or maybe a few days to visit with their families in the occupied territories. Now, this is another gross violation of human rights, because the division of family, the conventions, Geneva Conventions on discrimination, international instruments looking into aspects of racial and ethnic inequalities, etc. You have a very, very hostile Morocco, which does not recognize the determination of the Sahrawi people, let alone the Sahrawi people as being human. Morocco has continuously indicated that they do not recognize or acknowledge the human right of the Sahrawi people. You have the situation of women and children tortured. Amina, for example, where they had actually removed her eye. And this continues. And then you have the lack of humanitarian aid because of access. The checkpoint situation, as you find in Palestine, Ramallah, West Bank, Gaza, the same situation, humanitarian aid is limited. And then there is the propaganda of Morocco in terms of what they say in respect of what the nature of the conflict involves. Now, this conflict, obviously, there was a previous war that was fought and lost by Morocco, which you are very aware of. So this is now a conflict that is being fueled by external forces for the purposes of extraction of minerals, gas reserves, potential oil reserves, energy reserves, water reserves that are beneath the soil of the desert.
Yeah.
And it is just, yes.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that, Magdalene. And I mean, you really, for listeners and viewers back home, I think you really opened up, and myself included, our minds surrounding the conflict in Western Sahara, um, particularly between Morocco and Western Sahara, fighting for their sovereignty and independence, essentially. Um, to speak to this, the difficulty, I think, when it comes to what's happening between Western Sahara and Morocco is that there are just so many parts at play consistently. There's so many moving parts at play. And like you said, external forces as well. A couple of years back, Algeria closed their borders off to Morocco, and they stopped the exports of gas, which economically meant, growth for Algeria, but that also disproportionately, of course, affected Morocco. And then Morocco went on to kind of sign a deal just before Trump stepped down in his previous presidency between Israel and themselves. So geopolitically, this plays into something more broader, and I'm hoping we can kind of just have a discussion and explore that. But also, more so, you spoke about the reality of what's happening on the ground right now. Families are being displaced, the socio-economic conditions, is dire in Western Sahara, including the parallels between what's happening in Western Sahara and Palestine.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about the geopolitics, Fasiha. One of the issues is that we find ourselves in a situation where Morocco has signed a bilateral with Israel. Now, that is an unholy alliance, and we know that very well, because this is now a contribution towards further advancing humanitarian oppression, human oppression, the oppression of children, the oppression of women, and just generally oppression at large, and obviously genocide. This is genocide. Um, and so, what you had in the past was when there was a consideration from the US, because there is extensive funding that comes from various countries, US, France, Spain, for example. But now, in terms of the current geopolitics, if you have to consider the war between Ukraine and Russia, if you have to consider the situation in Palestine, sorry, the situation in Palestine and Israel, if you have to look at what is transpiring in the west of Africa, in terms of resistance against the former colonizers on the continent. One would then, and there was a meeting of NATO. And what transpired in that meeting was that looking at budget spend on military spend contribution towards the wars. Now, why would the United Nations and an arm of the United Nations, that being of NATO, in their full understanding of the founding documents, being that of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, the Charter, fuel and be part of contributing, asking nation states to contribute towards war. And this very same countries that you made reference to earlier have indicated that they're not going to contribute, they're not going to increase their military spend in terms of sustaining such wars. So obviously the sustainability factor is a problem, as if you have to also compare, you can't compare the same kind of military infrastructure that was used in World War I or World War II to what is current day. And this is why you had the B-2s that went into Iran, into 3 points of Iran, and then the Straits of Hormuz, because of Iran's resilience against the United States. So what we have is a situation where the funding or the military aspects and the relationship with Morocco. Morocco is a country that is extremely poor. That is a reality. Its form of trade is drugs. It's a drug capital, one of the drug capitals. If you look at substance abuse, and if you look at unemployment and go into the details of Morocco, one would realize why then would there be this conglomeration of interference of other countries, because Morocco is an entry point to Western Sahara. And that's why Morocco feels self-entitled to be, and this is why you have the support or the alleged support that is being given. Now, of late, there has been allegations that have been made against the Sahrawi people, the Polisario Front, etc. And the office of the President of the United States had then released a statement to say that, yes, he is indeed engaging both the King of Morocco. Remember, Morocco is a monarchy. It's not constitutional. So how can it in any way, mean, or form understand what a referendum would mean? Because it's a monarchy.
Right.
The UK is no different, because the UK is just a constitutional monarchy.
Right.
But there are inroads that have been made with the UK. But Donald Trump has, the office of the president has then come out and indicated that, no, he does engage both the Sahrawi Republic as well as that of Morocco. And there is no position that is official of the United States, which indicates that there is an alignment to Morocco. And that was now, as in this month or last month, if I'm not mistaken. But let's also take, and let's not forget what has happened in recent events, where the former Secretary General of Mkhonto Wesizwe Party indicated that there were monies. Now, Morocco, let us also understand why Morocco is very disingenuous, but obviously because it is being funded and it is now using the euro dollar patronage in order to garner such support. So you have a situation where Morocco is then able to buy off, and that's why, after it recused itself from the Organization of African Unity, then persisted to return to the African Union under Francophone support and the support of those countries through the euro dollar patronage. Now, the former Secretary General of the MKP then indicated that one of the qualms that he had was that of the relationship with the MKP and Morocco. Subsequent to that, we had released a statement to say that, well, it was then thereafter that the former president, Mr. Zuma, with a delegation went to Rabat and gave support to Morocco for full autonomy. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and it was official. After there was um, um, a resounding call against that, um, he then convened, and the MK party then convened a conference in Santon where they indicated that they are withdrawing their support for Morocco. And this is obviously because Morocco will find and fund and provide money. And this is why many delegations that go to Morocco are paid for by Morocco or paid for by whomever else supports Morocco or by its own means. Um, and so he then withdrew. And what one of the members of his party indicated was that, any functioning mind any functioning person can change their minds as and when they please. Now, what this tells you, on the face of it, is that there is not a resounding support for what Morocco is doing. For as long as Morocco provides the financial infrastructure, and when it decides to cut its financial cords, then there's no purpose left. Because if you put financial interest before political expediency and the rights and lives of human beings, you'll find yourself in a very short space. And so the former president of the country has now indicated that he supports unequivocally the Sahrawi struggle. So, if we have to go state by state and understand the dynamics, the geopolitics, both continentally, and what are the influences globally, the issue of Algeria and Morocco is one that obviously comes from, and this is where, when Morocco says the only way to create stability in the region
Mm-hmm.
is Morocco has control over the Western Sahara. Now, there's no sense to that. Algeria was one of the first liberated countries from the north of Africa. And
Sure.
what we know is the relationship with Algeria and those of Western Sahara and the northern region was one at one point that had in good faith understood the dynamics of the region. And when Morocco was then now agitating and stealing, we'll get into that, literally driving trucks through the wall, the hole in the wall, the Baram in Al Galgarat, what we found that it's when the war was agitated and when the military of the Western Sahara, the Polisario Front, decided that this has to come to an end. We've had situations in South Africa where we caught a ship that was transporting stolen property from the Western Sahara via the Eastern Cape. And there is a judgment to the effect where the property was then removed and it was sold, and the money that was procured out of the sale of that was, or the property itself was returned, what could be salvaged was returned to the people of Western Sahara. This
Mm-hmm.
also happened in Panama. And this is where it was then that, okay, the military decided to block access of Morocco to to pass with the trucks through the hole in the wall that has been built, which is landmine infested. Just to know, so even to get close to there needs to be a demining program that must be supported.
Yeah.
So no, I don't agree that there can be any. The only problem on this continent that is creating instability on the continent is Morocco. And if you look at Morocco's relationship, more especially with those who are involved in civilian or in coup d'etats, etc., you will find that there has a hand. Morocco has had a hand, whether through the front or the back door, but there's definitely involvement of Morocco. And what we want is for Morocco to be removed from the African Union, for Morocco to retain and do whatever it wants to do, but it should also be isolated at every level and not garner the kind of support, because then we're playing double standards politically, diplomatically, socially, in terms of human rights, and in terms of ethnic rights. Because Morocco feels that they are a monarchy, that the people of the Western Sahara are just but mere, not even recognized subjects, or they are under the rule. And the resilience of the Sahara people is unmatched.
100%. I mean, Magdalene Moonsamy coming through from the South African Solidarity Movement for Western Sahara. You touched on some pivotal points, and I think really explored the geopolitics around what's happening in Morocco and the Western Sahara. A basis for this conflict, like many, if not all, other conflicts, it's around land, it's around territorial militant control, trade routes, and then, of course, natural resources. But the case of Western Sahara and Morocco, or rather Western Sahara and Morocco in particular, is really just the gross human rights violations that's happening to the people in Western Sahara right now, including the women who have been suffering, women refugees facing gender-based violence that has come out from recent UN reports, which is something we can touch base on after the short break.
Penny Appeal's Education First campaign helps children to get access to quality education.
I'm 14 years old. When I grow up, I'd like to be a scientist.
We believe every child belongs at school,
And we want education, a better education.
learning and dreaming their way to a better future. With your help, we can provide classrooms, desks, stationery packs, and school shoes. Help make these dreams a reality. Visit www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573. Penny Appeal. Small change, big difference.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness, and every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and freezer card calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
Valley's Motor Spares. We supply motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, bakkies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name, Valley's Motor Spares.
Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Right, welcome back. You're tuned in to Salam Media, the mid-morning talk with myself, Asiha Davids. I am joined in with Magdalene Moonsamy, representative for the South African Solidarity Movement for Western Sahara. We've been touching on the geopolitics and current situation of Morocco and Western Sahara. Just before the ad break, I touched on the recent UN report that was released, and I'm just going to read it out for listeners and viewers back home, or at least part of it. What is particularly disturbing rather is the plight of the Sahrawi women refugees who have faced gender-based violence, forced marriages and restrictions on movement and speech. Yet neither Morocco nor Algeria has taken significant steps to alleviate their suffering. According to the recent UN report, the international aid that is directed toward the Sahrawi people is being siphoned off by the Polisario Front. I mean, Magdalene, do you have any comment on this?
Okay, this is propaganda, if you want to say that is something that is being advocated by the Polisario. Now, I'll give you an example. I spend a lot of time in the camps, in the territories there, and in all parts of the desert. And what I can say for sure is that, and this I think is a perspective that one needs to understand, which is why there's such a huge global footprint of the Western Sahara. I mean, irrespective of what is said by France, by Spain, if you look at the population of Sahrawis that are living in Spain, one would then obviously understand why the issue is a double standard. Now, the point that I want to make and I want to stress on is if you had to travel the world over, you would not find a more liberated woman than a Sahrawi woman. Mm-hmm. And this is because of two reasons. One, it's the nature of the understanding that the woman is the cornerstone, the foundation of not only the family, but of society, and building the society and building the population. The second issue that I want to raise is that women are in government, women are in governance in the Western Sahara. And I can say this because I have sat and discussed what is the state in terms of municipalities or the situation in various locations in the Western Sahara. So the propaganda to suggest that women are forced into marriages, and that is the absolute opposite, actually, if I have to tell you. And this might sound a bit funny, but it is actually to the extent where if a woman decides that she wants to end her marriage for reasons that is of her own, she will do so and marry tomorrow, and there is a celebration. Women are not oppressed in the unoccupied territories. Let's be clear. When we talk about the unoccupied territories, the freedom of women, the responsibility of the male in the household is not only to be sitting around. No, he has to cook, he has to clean as well. So it's not a society that one is, I mean, this is coming from people, the United Nations. Let me give you a reality, Fasiha. Mm-hmm. The United Nations report makes such a suggestion of, well, there is definitely gender-based violence that is purported and perpetrated by Morocco. But you are not allowed to have a camera in the occupied territories. You're not allowed to have a camera in those occupied territories for people to be able to express themselves. CNN was there many years, a few years ago, maybe under 10 years ago, went to capture the violence. A woman who is standing with a simple placard, not causing any harm, any danger, or any interference to anyone, is beaten by Moroccan police. No media, and this is why we need, as a society, not to look at the face of it, of what is being said by the oppressor, because every oppressor legitimizes through their own psychosis
Right.
the reasons for their oppression. Psychotically so. And this is what we understand. These are the ultimate tyrants that resurface with their horns on their head and want to claim authority over information of the territories that they oppress. And this is why I want to reaffirm that the most protected child, the most protected women, the most protected human beings in the unoccupied territories are the Sahrawi people. And they are fighting for self-determination not because of any reason, but the right to have an identity, which has been confirmed. The South African bilateral relations, diplomatic relations, and other relations with the Western Sahara are very strong. So too are relations with most parts of the continent where you have embassies, you have charge d'affaires. Now,
Right.
why would you have an embassy in Europe, in other parts in Asia, in all part of the UK? You've got in South America, you've got in North America, in different parts, Washington, New York. Why would you have diplomats in those countries if the state was not recognized? The issue here is formalizing the recognition, because it is not something that has not been done. It's not something that's unknown. It's the fact that Morocco must get its hands off the Western Sahara, its obsession with the mineral resources. The Sahrawi people must have the right to self-determination in terms of how they utilize their resources and how they want and who do they want to engage with, whether it is internationally through economic diplomacy, but the recognition of their cultural rights under the cultural diplomatic rights is an aspect that is unresolved. We know that it is still there is genocide in the United States. Who can point a finger and suggest that? We know recently, was it Denmark or Norway, which said that the hijab is not allowed to be worn. I'm sure it's now following suit in Scandinavia. And one would then ask yourself a question. Now you want to even control the dress code, because globalization has given us what? It has given us a Western understanding of what culture should be. And the preservation of a culture, the preservation of a culture, of a religion, of tolerance, of a people should be the right of that people to do so. So we're
Thank
not
you so much for that. Yeah, sorry to cut you, Magdalene. We are pressed for time. I have another interview lined up, but we definitely need to have you back. I mean, you're touching on some pivotal points there regarding culture, people fighting for their independence and globalization. We covered the conflict of what's happening in between Morocco and Western Sahara. And we were joined by Magdalene Moonsamy, representative for South African Solidarity Movement for Western Sahara, calling for Morocco to be removed from the AU and to get their hands off the Sahrawi people. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Fasiha. Thank you to the listeners.